Snow falls heavily against the hotel room window, each flake melting into irregular trails that resemble frozen tears. Maya presses the phone to her ear, the chill of the glass seeping through her ragged breath. On the other end, her Uncle Marcus's voice sounds distant, almost unrecognizable through the crackle of a poor connection. "Are you sure you want to do this today, Maya?" "The forecast isn't looking good for the mountains," Marcus says, but she can hear the barely contained excitement in his voice. It's always been that way with him, an incorrigible adventurer, unable to resist the call of the heights. Even at 52, Maya presses her forehead against the icy glass, watching the snow-covered peaks of the Colorado Rockies stretching beyond the small town of Estes Park. "I need to do this, Uncle. It's important." Her words come out in white puffs of breath, and she can't explain why she feels such a desperate urgency to hike that specific trail, the same one her parents had traversed 20 years ago, 3 days before they vanished without a trace. Silence hangs on the line for a few seconds before Marcus sighs. "Okay, meet me at the base of the Longs Peak Trail in an hour. And Maya, bring extra layers. Something tells me we're gonna need them." When Marcus hangs up, Maya continues holding the phone, feeling the weight of 2 decades of unanswered questions pressing against her chest. She's 25 now, the same age her mother was when she disappeared, and every mirror reflects the same oval face, the same green eyes that haunt the yellowed photographs she keeps in her wallet. EXT. Longs Peak Trailhead. 1 hour later. An hour later, Maya stands at the trailhead, her boots sinking into the fresh snow as Marcus adjusts the settings on his action camera. He'd been a professional skydiver for 15 years before becoming an instructor, and his obsession with documenting every adventure had intensified since his wife's death 2 years prior. "You never know when it might be your last time," he always says, and Maya can never decide if she finds it wise or morbid. "Did you bring the coordinates?" Marcus asks, checking his GPS for the 3rd time. His gloved fingers tremble slightly, not from the cold, Maya realizes, but from what seems like nervousness. Maya pulls a crumpled piece of paper from her jacket's inner pocket. The coordinates are written in her grandmother's handwriting, discovered just a week earlier amongst old belongings in the attic. 40.2180 degrees N, 105.5052 degrees W. Numbers that mean nothing to most people, but that have kept Maya awake every night since their discovery. "Uncle, did my parents ever mention this specific place?" Marcus stops fiddling with his equipment and looks at her. His eyes, the same faded blue as the winter sky, seem to hold secrets he's never shared. "Your mother, she had an obsession with local legends, always talking about places where the veil between worlds was thin." He hesitates. "I thought it was just flights of fancy." They begin their ascent up the narrow trail, their breaths forming dense clouds in the frigid air. The snow is deeper than expected, knee-deep in places, and Maya feels sweat freezing against her skin beneath the layers of thermal clothing. The mountain's silence is oppressive, broken only by the crunch of their footsteps in the packed snow and the distant whistle of wind between the peaks. EXT. Longs Peak Trail. 2 hours later. 2 hours later, as the sun begins to dip behind the heavy clouds, Maya realizes something is wrong. She stopped to check the GPS and noticed Marcus isn't responding to her questions. When she turns to look at him, she finds him standing a few yards behind, staring intently at something beyond the trail. "Uncle, what is it?" Marcus points with a trembling hand towards an ice-covered rock formation, partially obscured by a curtain of mist. "There. Do you see it?" Maya follows his gaze and feels her blood run cold. Partially buried in the snow, almost invisible except for the metallic glint reflecting the weak light, is something that definitively doesn't belong there. It looks modern, artificial. "Let's check it out," Maya says, but her voice comes out raspy and uncertain. As they approach, the form becomes clearer. It's a metallic structure, part of something larger that has been covered by years of snow accumulation. Marcus takes out his camera and begins filming, his methodical movements contrasting with the visible tension in his shoulders. "Maya, this shouldn't be here," he murmurs, focusing the lens on specific details of the structure. This looks military. old but not old enough. Maya kneels in the snow and starts digging with her gloved hands. The metal is too cold to touch directly, but she can see symbols etched into the surface. They aren't letters from any alphabet she recognizes, but there's something vaguely familiar about the geometric patterns. Uncle, stop filming for a second and help me here. But when Maya looks up, Marcus is gone. Panic hits like an avalanche. Marcus. Her voice echoes through the cliffs, returning in distorted echoes that seem to mock her. Maya stands up too quickly and feels a nauseating dizziness. The mist has thickened around them without her noticing, and now she can barely see a few feet in any direction. She grabs her own phone, but there's no signal. The GPS shows only static. It's as if the mountain itself has decided to swallow them whole. Marcus, where are you? Maya started running down the trail back the way they'd come, stumbling through the deep snow, feeling low-hanging branches scrape her face. Her heart hammered so hard she could hear it over the sound of her ragged breathing. Every shadow among the trees seemed like a human figure. Every gust of wind sounded like a voice calling her name. After 20 minutes of frantic running, Maya stopped. She was lost, completely lost. The trail had vanished under a uniform blanket of snow, and all the landmarks she thought she'd memorized were obscured by the thickening fog. That's when she heard it. A low, almost inaudible sound, like voices whispering, but not in any language she could recognize. The sound was coming from above, from the cliffs. Maya looked up through the fog and felt her stomach churn. Something was moving up there. Dark figures against the gray sky, moving in a coordinated way along the cliff edge. She pulled out her binoculars and adjusted the focus with trembling fingers. What she saw made her drop to her knees in the snow. Marcus was there. But he wasn't alone. He was surrounded by 6 figures dressed in dark, archaic clothing that looked like they'd stepped straight out of a 19th century photograph, and he didn't seem to be struggling or trying to escape. On the contrary, he stood in the center of the group, his camera still recording, as if he were voluntarily documenting whatever was happening. One of the figures, Maya couldn't tell if it was male or female, held something out to Marcus. He took the object and held it up to the light. It was a photograph. Even through the binoculars and the fog, Maya could see enough to recognize what it was. It was a picture of herself, taken just a few hours earlier at the base of the trail. Maya felt bile rise in her throat. How did they have a picture of her? And why did Marcus seem so calm? That's when she remembered something her grandmother had said once, years ago, on a night when Maya couldn't sleep and had asked too many questions about her missing parents. Sometimes, Maya, people don't disappear. Sometimes they choose to leave, and sometimes they're chosen. A twig snapped behind her. Maya whirled around and saw a figure emerging from the fog. It was a middle-aged woman, wearing modern mountaineering gear, but there was something in her eyes, an unfathomable depth, that made Maya feel like she was looking at something far older than it appeared. Maya, the woman said, and her voice had an indefinable accent, as if she'd learned to speak multiple languages all at once. We've been expecting you. Who are you? Where's my uncle? The woman smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Your uncle is fine. He's reuniting with people he knew a long time ago, people your parents knew too. The world started spinning around Maya. My parents, you knew them. Knew is an interesting word, the woman said, taking a step closer. They made a choice, Maya. The same choice your uncle is making now. The same choice you'll have to make. Maya stumbled back, but her feet tangled in the deep snow, and she fell. What choice? What are you talking about? The woman knelt beside her, and Maya could see that her eyes were an impossible color. A blue so deep it seemed to contain stars. There are places on this mountain that exist between worlds, Maya. Places where those who are special can pass on to something greater. Your parents understood this. Your uncle is beginning to understand. You're crazy, Maya whispered. But the words came out without conviction. Deep down, a part of her had always known there was something more to her parents' disappearance. Something that didn't fit the official explanations of avalanches and bodies never found. The woman extended a gloved hand. Come with me, Maya. Let me show you what your parents discovered. For a moment that seemed to last an eternity, Maya stared at the outstretched hand. Part of her wanted to take that hand, wanted to finally have answers. But a voice inside her head, her grandmother's voice, whispered, "Run." Maya scrambled to her feet and started running in the opposite direction, ignoring the woman's shouts behind her. Her lungs burned in the frigid air, and she could feel tears freezing on her face. She had no idea where she was running, but she knew she needed to get away. That's when she tripped over something buried in the snow. She fell heavily, feeling a sharp pain in her right knee. When she looked down to see what she'd tripped over, the blood drained from her face. It was a backpack, an outdated mountaineering backpack, but well preserved by the cold, and stitched onto the side, almost faded but still legible, were the initials, S.C. Sarah Chen, her mother's maiden name. With trembling hands, Maya opened the backpack. Inside were clothes, emergency supplies, and at the bottom, wrapped in waterproof plastic, a brown leather journal. Maya opened the journal to the first page, and immediately recognized her mother's handwriting. March 15, 2004. David and I arrived in Estes Park today. He's skeptical about the stories I've heard about this place, but he's agreed to investigate. The woman in Denver, who told me about the passengers, seemed genuinely terrified. She said they've been here for centuries, choosing people for what? I don't fully understand yet, but something about this place calls to me. Maya flipped through the pages quickly, her eyes scanning the entries frantically. March 17th. We found the first site today. David filmed everything, structures that shouldn't exist, symbols that seem older than any known civilization. But the most disturbing were the photos, pictures of people who supposedly disappeared over the years, all dated the day of their disappearances, as if someone knew exactly when they were going to vanish. March 18th. They found us. They weren't hostile, on the contrary, they were welcoming. A woman who looks to be my age, but speaks as if she's lived centuries. She showed us things. Maya, if you ever read this, know that what I'm doing it out of love. Not for the ones I leave behind, but for the ones I can protect on this side. Maya felt warm tears streaming down her frozen face. The last entry was dated March 19th, the day her parents officially disappeared. Today's the day. David and I have agreed. It's not death, at least not in the way people understand it. It's a transformation, a passage to something greater. The passengers showed us that we can protect Maya on this side. We can ensure she has a normal life until her time comes to choose as well. They say it always happens in the third generation, that the calling becomes too strong to ignore. Maya, my sweet daughter, if you're reading this, then your time to choose has come. We tried to protect you, but blood always calls to blood. You feel it, don't you? The pull to this place, the need to find answers. You can choose to come with us, where we'll be waiting on the other side, where we can finally be a family again. Or you can choose to live, but know that the calling will never completely go away. It will haunt you your entire life. The choice is yours, my dear. It always was. Maya closed the journal with trembling hands and looked around. The fog had dissipated, and she could see clearly now. She was back at the spot where she'd found the metallic structure, but now she could see it was much larger than she'd initially realized. It was an entire complex, partially buried in the snow and ice, extending deep into the mountain, and there were people, dozens of them, all wearing clothes from different eras, all standing in a perfect circle around the structure. In the center of the circle were Marcus and her parents. Her parents looked exactly as they did in the photographs. They hadn't aged a day in the past 20 years. They smiled when they saw her, and Maya felt her heart break and heal at the same time. Maya, her mother called, extending her arms. You came. Maya took a step toward them, then stopped. You're really here? Or am I going crazy? We're here, her father said. His voice exactly as she remembered it from the audio tape she used to listen to as a child. We've been waiting so long for you. And if I choose to go with you, what happens to me? Do I die? The woman Maya had met before approached. Death is a limited concept in what you understand as life. You would pass into a different form of existence, where time works differently, where you can protect those you love in ways you never imagined. But I could never come back, not in the way you understand come back now, her mother admitted. But Maya, imagine a life without pain, without loss, without the constant feeling that something is missing. Imagine being able to see us every day, having the complete family you always wanted. Maya looked at Marcus, who had remained silent throughout the conversation. Uncle, what do you think? Marcus lowered his camera, which Maya realized he'd been filming the whole time, and looked at her with tears in his eyes. Maya, I lost my wife. I lost my brother and sister-in-law. I thought I could live with that pain, but sometimes the weight is too much to carry alone. So you're going to stay. I've already chosen, he said softly. But you still have a whole life ahead of you. You have choices I never had. Maya looked around at the circle of expectant faces. Each person there represented a choice similar to the one she was facing. Each had decided that what they were leaving behind was worth less than what they were gaining. But then she thought of her grandmother, now 83, still waiting at home for news. She thought of the friends she'd made in college, the job she loved as a pediatric nurse, the little patients who depended on her. She thought of the children she might one day have, of the grandchildren she might one day give to her grandmother. And as much as it hurt, as much as every fiber of her being wanted to run into her parents' arms, Maya knew what her choice was. I can't, she whispered. I'm so sorry, but I can't. The circle of people remained silent for a long moment. Then her mother smiled, a sad but understanding smile. We knew this was a possibility, she said. We hoped, but we knew. Blood is strong, Maya, but the heart is stronger still. Does that mean I'll never see them again? Her father stepped forward. The veil between worlds is thinner in some places, Maya. Perhaps, if you return here when you're older, when you've lived a full life, when you have nothing else tying you to the other side. Maya nodded, knowing that this was the only promise they could make. Marcus approached her and handed her his camera. Take this, it's all recorded. Maybe someday someone will need to know the truth about this place. Uncle, are you sure? I am, he said, kissing her forehead. Take care of Grandma for me. And Maya, live, really live, for all of us. The circle of people began to move, walking slowly towards the metal structure. A door Maya hadn't noticed before started to open, revealing a soft golden light on the other side. One by one, they passed through the door, until only her parents and Marcus remained. Her parents embraced her one last time, and Maya could feel their warmth, smell the perfume her mother always wore, feel her father's rough beard against her cheek. For a moment, she almost changed her mind. We love you, her mother whispered in her ear. Forever and always. And then they were gone. Maya was alone on the mountain, holding Marcus's camera, as the metal structure slowly faded into the returning mist. When the mist finally cleared, there was nothing there except untouched snow and rocks. It took her 6 hours to find her way back to the trailhead. Mountain Rescue found her as the sun was setting, delirious with cold and exhaustion. She spent 3 days in the hospital being treated for mild hypothermia and dehydration. When she finally returned home, Maya didn't know how to explain what had happened. Marcus's camera hadn't recorded anything, just static. Investigators concluded he had fallen into a crevasse, and that his body would likely never be recovered. But late at night, when her grandmother was asleep and the house was quiet, Maya would take her mother's journal and read the words one last time. And sometimes when the wind blew from the direction of the mountains, she swore she could hear familiar voices whispering her name. She continued working as a nurse, continued visiting her grandmother every Sunday, continued living a life her parents had chosen to protect. But a part of her always remained on that mountain, at that moment of choosing between two worlds. And on the quietest nights, when the longing became almost unbearable, Maya would look out the window toward the distant peaks and whisper, "Maybe when I'm older, maybe when I've lived a full life," because some promises she had learned are made not only to the dead, but to those who have chosen a destiny beyond the understanding of the living. And some choices echo through the years, patiently waiting for the right moment to be honored. The snowflakes continued to fall against her window, each one unique and ephemeral, like the decisions that define a life. And somewhere between worlds, Maya knew that those she loved were waiting, with all the patience that only those who have transcended time can possess. The mountain remained there, silent and eternal, guarding its secrets and its promises, and Maya lived, carrying within her the certainty that someday, when her own earthly story came to an end, there would be a door opening to a golden light, where all separated families finally reunite. For now, this was enough. For now, it was everything.